Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the second session of the day. We are privileged to have a very distinguished personality with us, Professor Dr. Ranga Ramanujan. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Professor Dr. Ranga Ramanujan has been in the field of open online and distance learning, MOOCs and OER for over 3.5 decades with the domain expertise over course design, staff training, learner support system management, development and monitoring and evaluation system, as well as quality assurance and standards and protocols. His pioneering efforts have brought out, among others, several innovative socially relevant curriculum, engaging distance learning programs of high quality and impactful staff development activities in India and 55 other countries. He is as conversant with face-to-face classroom teaching as with online education, where print medium and the emerging technologies play their roles in content creation and dissemination. Having worked at several developing and developed economies across continents, he follows global best practices in all educational transactions and setting standards. Sir began his career by joining the IGNOU as a founding faculty member in 1986. During his time at this premier public institution, he has led many staff training and research institute of distance education, the Inter-University Consortium for Technology-Enabled and Flexible Education, and many other programs as director for over a decade. He was responsible for implementing the international schemes in 55 countries. Most recently, Sir has served as the IGNOU's Pro Vice Chancellor, where he facilitated the growth of four of the university's biggest schools of studies. His professional contribution was significant in the university's launching of pioneer capacity building staff development programs and also many new courses he has started. Sir has oversaw the modernization of 14 regional centers that were under his supervision. Professor Ramanujan has been widely recognized for his role in establishing and developing IGNOU as a global leader in open learning. His expertise has been actively sought not only by the Government of India, but also the Commonwealth of Learning, the British government, and UNESCO. He was review editor, and chief editor of Indian Journal of Open Learning over 10 years and has served on the advisory boards of 4 international journals of online, digital and open distance learning. An impeccable research experience matches his stellar global reputation as an administrator and academic leader. Sir has served as visiting professors at various reputed universities in Germany, USA, Sri Lanka, and Ethiopia. Outside the academic setting, he has been a resource person or expert consultant for the World Bank, UNESCO, UNICEF, WHO, and other international organizations. The pinnacle of his global academic partnership was in 2007, when he won the prestigious UK India Education and Research Initiative Award to study the use of distance education for sign language users in India. The research study concluded with the establishment of the Bachelor of Arts in Applied Sign Language Studies at IGNOU, which subsequently led to the establishment of the Indian Sign Language Research and Training Center, sponsored by the Government of India in 2011, which he headed for a year and has traveled widely in Asia, Africa, Europe, and North America. Sir, I welcome you to this refresher course, and I thank you so much for taking your time and coming here. And now, without any further delay, I ask you to enlighten us. I think all our participants, and I'm going to learn a lot with your words of wisdom. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Just want to confirm, inclusive environment in higher education, challenges and strategies. That's the topic, general topic given. I would be touching upon a number of issues on this general theme and will reflect on some of the issues concerning persons with disabilities as well, because inclusion is one of the major issues when we talk about education of underprivileged students. Thank you for introducing me so elaborately. I think just one sentence would be enough. Professor Ramanujan is a poor professor. with some rich experience. Thank you so much. And I am really glad that you are organizing a seminar or interaction on such an important theme that you have selected. I think the context is very important. Everywhere we are talking about new education policy, and we have to tune all our academic and research activities to suit the focal areas of new education policy. Within that, we have to talk about the environment, inclusion, and the challenges. I hope I am visible on the wider screen. Good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Inclusion simply means that there are sections in any given society who are not privileged. And in order to carry them along with the so-called mainstream activities, we invent terms and also expressions which would not be harsh, but would be pleasant and comfortable. If you unravel the meaning of inclusion, we will realize that some sections, I don't want to get into the statistics, although I know some of the statistics which will be revealing, but a particular section or a few sections are not within the mainframe or the mainstream of our educational enterprise. So we have to bring them in. In other words, there are people who are underprivileged and they need to be brought in so that they will get sufficient opportunities to improve their education and their status, and they become one with the mainstream. So that's the meaning of inclusion. But then we cannot forget, even for a moment, that there are so many divides which act as hurdles for this kind of inclusion. The first hurdle is economic division, economic divide. Then you have social divide. Then you have linguistic divide. And then you have, of late, the digital divide. They are all interconnected. I will touch upon them one by one as challenges to realize the inclusive education articulated elaborately by the new education policy. And if you recall, from 1947 and the first education committee report, university report submitted by Dr. Radhakrishnan, our philosopher, President of India, then Dr. D.S. Kothari, and then the National Education Policy of 1986, in between so many committees to implement all those schemes in order to realize our vision of education for all. And now the new education policy 2020, we will see that more or less the concerns have been almost the same, except that in 2020, we are taking up certain issues more prominently, like blended education, open learning, and education for all to realize the sustainable development goals. And goals are, of course, always set with the vision so that the gaps can be bridged and the degree of inclusion can be more. Now, let me start with the economic divide, which is the major challenge in including people. Right now, we are going through a very, very major crisis. COVID-19, Corona, which has forced the entire world to close their classroom teaching. 1.62 or 63 billion students are outside their classrooms. And we are also fortunate to see some of the students returning to schools after 17 or 18 months, and the TVs are screaming and they are showing classrooms with social distance or physical distance, students interacting with the teachers, their friends, and all that. I see something very revealing. All those schools that the TV channels have shown are privileged schools. Beautiful buildings, excellent equipment, and then they talk about what the students missed. And at the same time, the students are saying that they missed the social interaction. They're very genuine, very frank. Although they were getting some kind of learning, they did not have opportunities to interact with the teachers and the students, their friends, and therefore they were missing something. It's good and it's good. It's fair enough. At the same time, you think of schools without buildings. Think of schools where you don't have proper classrooms, no drinking water, and no toilet facilities, no equipment, and no trained teachers. The teachers, students, and the interviewers from the TV channels, they all focus on the genuine problems of the children coming from affluent, well-to-do, middle class and upper middle class families. When they face such challenges, in order to get what they normally expect from the schools to get, imagine a situation when the rains are pouring, when the buildings are collapsing, when there is no roof above their heads. How many millions and millions of poor Indian students have the opportunity to return to schools after 17 or 18 months? So this tells you immediately the challenge, the economic divide, the gap between the privileged and the underprivileged. So we need to think about it and then try to bridge by involving the government, the state, the private sector, and the voluntary sectors, somehow to remove this kind of disparity. That's one challenge. The second challenge is the social challenge. All of us know, I think in India, we have 4,300 plus castes and 5 major religions. Culturally, all these have stratifications, and they act often against inclusion, whether it is a classroom or in a college or in a university. The identities are so clearly revealed, and then there will be all kinds of stated or unstated, openly articulated or silently stomached disparities among the castes, among the varnas, among the beliefs, among the religions. So this is another very big challenge that we have to tackle. The third is linguistic divide. Now, I'm really happy that NEP 2020 puts a lot of emphasis on learning through mother tongue as medium of instruction. I have always advocated that mother tongue should be given its due in order to educate all our children, not only for cultural reasons or our own identity, but that is the philosophy articulated by any informed educationist and education philosophers. It's very easy. I can give my own example. If you give me a novel or a book of 300 pages in Tamil, which is my mother tongue, I can go through that book maybe in 6 or 7 hours. I got no problem. I can understand, cull out the essential points, reflect on them. But with all my qualifications, with my PhD in English, if I have to go through a book of 300 pages, perhaps I will take 4 or 5 days. You see the divide. Mother tongue enables you to think fast, read fast, comprehend fast, reflect deeply, and then imbibe and internalize. Whereas another language, if you are not equally proficient, then it becomes a challenge. Now in India, we have a peculiar situation. At least 22 languages have been listed as Indian languages in the 8th schedule, of which 4 or 5 are classical languages: Sanskrit, Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu, Kannada, and a few more may join very soon. All these classical languages and even modern languages have such wonderful treasures of literature, poetry, appreciation of day-to-day life, everything. But then we have to look at the reality. Now, I don't think anybody can come out with convincing evidence that we are offering all the programs at the college level or at the university level in our own mother tongues, be it Hindi, Bengali, Malayalam, Tamil, or any Indian language. A simple thing like MBA or BE in engineering, MBBS in medicine, and you think of any other subject, except the languages themselves, you don't have materials for BA and MA or master's level. You can't offer MSc physics or chemistry in any other language other than English. Now that's a different story altogether. It's a 200 or 300-year-old colonial history where English entered our intellectual life and many people got educated. English education has its own negative sides and positive sides. But for English education, probably many of our liberation struggles, freedom fighters would not have got what they could get through their English education, what was happening in Europe, in the advanced world, and concepts of democracy, and so many other things, which acted as a powerful weapon against the very slavery or the colonial rule, which introduced English for a different purpose. So this is the beauty of life. It is the dialectics. You introduce something with one intention, and the consequences may be totally unintended. So by all definitions, till 1947, English was a foreign language. The great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and others, they wanted to promote mother tongue, and they were not happy with English. But after independence, in 1947, you look at what has been happening for the last 75 years. You take any major official function, any law, any official communication, court proceedings, up to the Supreme Court, drafting, introducing a bill in the parliament, everywhere you have to depend on English. In one sense, all Englishmen left before 15th August or little later, but English has stuck to our intellectual life and day-to-day activities. Now this we should look at with a different perspective. If you look at the status of English at the world level, it has been a very, very powerful international language. And if you want to really dominate, let alone fight injustices imposed on us during the 200 or 300 years by the rulers, a very powerful weapon is English. By learning English, our people can dominate the intellectual world. The world-class universities can emerge from India if you combine this simple formula, mother tongue plus English, at least for some time. I'm not saying that we have to neglect mother tongue and then go for English. Similarly, when people talk about promoting mother tongue, whatever be the language, Indian language, we should not close our eyes to the reality. The future of our millions of youngsters and children. If you don't have your mother tongue, you lose your identity. If you don't have sufficient command of English, you lose the opportunity to go for higher education and also for lucrative jobs. This is the reality. Statistics would tell you if you don't have a good command of English, you will not get opportunities to go for higher studies. Even when you write your PhD theses, whatever it is the subject, except in language subjects, you have to depend on English because the learning materials, research materials, learning resources, they are all available in plenty. And that's one of the reasons why other countries, including China, Germany, Japan, Russia, all of them decided to learn English for the purpose for which it should be learned. And therefore, even if you talk about the languages in any context, we should not be unrealistic. We should have that sense of realism to appreciate the importance of English plus mother tongue. One should not neglect mother tongue. I would even go to the extent of saying that a graduate coming out after 3 years, now 4 years, unless what he or she has done in that specialization to get an honors degree, one paper or a work equivalent to one paper should be translation of what you know or what you have learned through English. That should be available in your own mother tongue. Let it be Hindi, let it be Tamil, let it be any Indian language. And that should be compulsory. If this simple formula is followed, if it is included in our national curriculum, I think both our mother tongues and English can complement each other and we become well-versed. Otherwise, what will happen? I may acquire so many degrees, acquire so much of knowledge when my grandmother or grandfather, or if my parents are not that literate, when they ask me, my son, why don't you tell us what you have learned and what you are doing? Then most probably my answer would be, no, don't worry about it. If I tell you, then you would not understand. If you cannot translate and render your knowledge, hard-earned knowledge, in such a way to make your own parents and grandparents understand, then that knowledge only promotes your self-growth, your selfishness, your individual growth. It doesn't contribute to the growth of the community, growth of the nation, growth of India at large. So this understanding is very, very important. This is the third divide that I have highlighted. The fourth is digital divide. Ever since the digital revolution following ICT became a reality, you will see all over the world, digital divide is a hot topic. And in India, it's really astounding 90% of the rural children do not have access to connectivity. They don't have internet. And the children coming from below poverty line families, they don't have smartphones. And this being the simple reality, how to bridge this gap. I have my own solutions, but unfortunately, I don't have the power to do anything because it needs political will. It needs the state intervention. And we have so many examples that we have adopted social welfare measures in many states. If you take the state of Tamil Nadu, what is not available through the intervention of the state? You have public distribution system, you have cycles, first for the girls and now for every student at the school level. You have laptops, you have color TVs, everything is there. But then what about the poor children who want to have some access to online education? That's a great challenge. So the state will have to do something, and it's very easy to do. They can have tie-up with telecom communication companies and bring out affordable, cheap devices. That should be done. Then the internet facilities. This should become part of the state policy, both at the central level and at the state's level. And then the related challenge is the teachers. Most of the teachers working in government schools, perhaps Delhi may be an exception, they are not digital technology savvy. They are not very friendly with the digital devices. They say, you open your schools, then we will teach. So I am interacting with a number of teachers and teachers associations and my own friends in Tamil Nadu almost every week. I tell them, you need only 1 week orientation. This is not rocket science. Even rocket science is only mastered by us, by the human being. What is the problem? You just do certain things where you don't understand. You take the help of young teachers. Young teachers are tech savvy. They quickly master the art of teaching through technologies. And if all these teachers are involved in intensive training programs for 1 or 2 weeks, they can teach. So connectivity is important. The basic infrastructure and the technology as such should be provided in order to bridge this gap. Otherwise, what will happen? People coming from privileged conditions like us, I include myself, we normally don't think about the digital divide. So if our laptop is working and if we have internet, Wi-Fi and all this, we think the whole world is like that, which is not the case. You just talk to your driver, talk to your servant maid, ask about their children's education. Then our eyes will be opened to the reality. And this is a huge challenge. If 90% of our rural children do not have access to school because of the pandemic, and if they cannot get any kind of education through digital or online mode, then it is as good as dropping all these children from school system. And the same thing may happen at the higher education level if they don't have proper connectivity and interaction. The other important thing is, even when you don't have such problems with technology and all, I have been observing for the last 20 months what is going on in the name of online education. It meets hardly 10% of the requirement of a proper teaching lab. I am talking to you, you are listening to me. Maybe there may be a few questions. That is not online education. Online education must meet all those requirements and conditions which we normally put in the classroom situation. but not in the same way. The means will be different and the format will be different, but then the learning outcome cannot be different. Let me give just one example. If you produce an MBBS doctor through classroom teaching, face-to-face teaching, and if you produce another MBBS through online teaching, now they must have the same quality. They must have the same kind of knowledge acquisition, and they must have the same experience and competence to work as doctors. And because I am giving the medical example, that's the most sensitive one. They're dealing with the human beings. If there is a gap in understanding and in a gap in the experiences, practicals, then what will happen? The doctor will not know how to diagnose, let alone perform any kind of surgery. But then the digital devices, although all over the world, have enabled us to offer education through technologies. Telemedicine, we are all very familiar, but how telemedicine is administered, how online learning produces equally good or even better medical professionals than the face-to-face system. Tons and tons of literature is available. But unfortunately, in our situation in India, for the last 20 months, I have seen Zoom meetings, Google Meets, lectures, and that's all. That doesn't meet, it meets only one condition, giving lectures. But then what happens to the interaction? How to organize interactive sessions, how to frame the curriculum, how to implement digital pedagogy, how to introduce instructional systems, how to design the instruction as such, and then assessment, evaluation, conducting examination. All this will give a holistic view of education, which can be easily done, but then there is not much awareness. So that is my real worry. When everything is there, why we are not doing? Talking to each other, fine. We can very well talk on the telephone. And we can see each other. And maybe limited interaction. But then what happens to the 85-90% of the teaching learning activity? The substance, that substance is missing. This is what I understand from the reactions of young students, that they miss the teachers. Why they miss the teachers? Why they miss their friends, fellow students? It's mainly because for something called hidden curriculum, informal teaching learning, discussions, interactions, they're all missing. It's just a monologue. And this monologue they can pick up from YouTube. They can learn from the text, from the Google, from the PDF documents. And what is teaching after all? Otherwise, they can get excellent books from the libraries. If the transaction of the content between the teacher and the learner does not take place, then it is not education. Saying mere hello, hello will not mean that we are really interacting. It should not become that way. So that is the fourth major challenge that we have to address. I thought if these four challenges can be thought about by everyone, it will be better. But then teachers, they are the people who will bring out the changes. Because teachers have a special place in society and they have a special responsibility. Please remember, teachers are not employees. We can't equate teachers as central government employees or state government employees. Teachers have a social role. Teachers have a commitment to society. and teachers have a commitment to their students. Now, this role cannot be taken away by anybody, whatever be our problems with our salary, our other benefits, monetary benefits. As a teacher, the way you feel for your students, nobody else can. A bureaucrat will not understand. A bureaucrat may have enormous powers. A politician may have enormous powers, but a teacher will have enormous influence, a moral influence and moral responsibility. So through these, we can definitely bridge all these 4 gaps and then bring about an environment where inclusive education will become a reality. So this is what I thought I will make as my preliminary observations. Maybe if there are following up sessions, at that time we can talk about a little more. And only one statement I would like to make. We have the divisions, social divisions, upper echelons, and then middle levels and the lower levels. But one section has been completely left out, that is persons with disabilities, children with disabilities. For them, inclusion is of utmost importance, and it is very, very urgent. Something is happening, but it is not enough. We have to accelerate the process and then include them in our main activities. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I think, sir, the chat box is not enabled yet, so participants can post their questions now only. But thank you, like very beautifully talked about these 4 divisions and where, you know, inclusivity is required. And I think we also, because we have not been to this online teaching mode for a longer time, so even we face problems many times, you know, as you said, that we also feel that bonding, that connection missing, which you were saying that students miss their teachers. I think we also miss our students many times, because that conversation, that interaction, that still is not to that degree which we are expecting. So I think we'll be working on that, because like you other resource people, they are also, you know, coming up with their strategies, and they are telling us the ways which can make our classrooms more interactive. So hopefully after your session also, and, you know, discussing more with you, we'll learn many other things.
No, very simple. We should go for special training of teachers, and then we should demonstrate how a full-fledged online education can take place. And our teachers are very sharp. I have no doubt about their ability. The only thing is some motivation, some facilities, some opportunities, they will pick up in a matter of weeks and months. But there has to be a thinking, there has to be a will, there has to be a vision. Then it will take place.
True, sir.
In other words, leadership.
Very true. Sir, there is one question, with your permission, I'd like to ask that, is by Dr. Gopal Kumar. And he's saying, सर ने अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण बात कही कि मातृभाषा में, is it okay if I speak that in Hindi?
You can speak it and then translate it, because my Hindi is not that sophisticated. I do not misunderstand. Yeah.
Okay. सर ने अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण बात कही कि मातृभाषा में किसी भी व्यक्ति के सीखने, सोचने, कार्य करने की स्पीड ज्यादा होती है। साथ ही नई शिक्षा नीति में भी मातृभाषा में शिक्षा देने की बात कही गई है। साथ ही इंजीनियरिंग, मेडिकल, MBA जैसे विषयों को भी मातृभाषा में पढ़ाने की बात कही जाती है। लेकिन सबसे बड़ी समस्या यह है कि आज़ादी के 75 वर्षों के बाद भी जितने भी उच्च शिक्षित विद्वान भारत में मौजूद हैं, उन सब ने अपनी उच्च शिक्षा अंग्रेजी में प्राप्त की है। ऐसे में कई विद्वान अंग्रेजी को ही जारी रखने की बात करते हैं। क्या अंग्रेजी में उच्च शिक्षा प्राप्त विद्वान अपनी मातृभाषा में आसानी से पढ़ा पाएंगे? और जहाँ तक अंग्रेजी गले की हड्डी बन गई, जिसे न तो निगलते बन रहा है और न ही उगलते बन रहा है। So basically, sir, he is saying that this new education policy is talking about the the use of mother tongue in this whole teaching learning process. But his question is that most of the our professors and people from academia, they have acquired their degrees in higher education in English medium only. So he's asking that would it be possible for them to teach these subjects in Hindi or the mother tongue?
Okay. Right now, it will not be possible for them. They will be fumbling. What I am saying is the same new education policy 2020 talks about importance of learning English as a language. Now, that is equally important. Now, if you ask them to translate into the mother tongue, wherever some issues are not understood easily because of the poor command of English on the part of the students, teachers should be able to do. They must make an attempt, but they won't be able to teach exclusively that subject in their mother tongues because they were not trained that way. They didn't travel in that path. Maybe some exceptional cases may be there. Some teachers may be very good. For example, if I have to talk about literature, criticism, higher education, I can do it equally well in my mother tongue and in English. But we can't expect a physics professor or a chemistry professor or a management professor to talk about all those concepts in any of the Indian languages. For that, special training is needed. It is not their fault. The policy was not there. Now we can introduce.
Yes, sir, true. And one of our resource person informed us that that content has started being translated into the regional languages. But as you said, we can't do it now. But I think the process has been started. So sooner or later, we can start with the training and with the content ready with us. I think we can start with our regional languages to be the medium of even higher education.
No, it should be. See, what I'm saying is, up to any level, our languages can teach any subject up to the highest level. But then there should be preparations. And in the educational field, preparations cannot be fixed just like that. It takes at least one generation to produce teachers who are good in their subjects, good in English, good in their mother tongue. You see the long process. It cannot happen overnight. Machine translation. Yes, machine translation can help, but you just look at the translated versions of your friends who are on the Facebook. It will be ridiculous what they say, a message sent in English. When it is translated into Hindi or any other Indian language, you will think that itself is a foreign language. What they are talking about. Although the words are in that language, the letters are in that language, but what the person is trying to do, you will be wondering. And then inevitably you go to the English version to understand the translated version in any of the Indian languages. So this is a practical difficulty. This is not about the intelligence of any particular individual. We need to prepare over a time. So the one important concern is the quality. If we want to satisfy the requirements of the institution or the government, one can mechanically do a literal translation, dictionary translation. You give it to the students. If they say the mother tongue version is much superior to the English one, there you have succeeded. And if they ask you, Madam, give me the English version, I am unable to understand the Hindi version, there it is an utter failure. We have to improve. But initially these hiccups will be there, but we can overcome. Should not be a problem. But please understand, I am not praising a language or undermining another language. It is a scientific approach. If our languages developed in their organic way, I think all our languages can give so much, which other people who have English as a mother tongue will have to come and sit at the feet of our own gurus learn our languages, which is happening in Indology. Many outstanding Sanskrit scholars, Tamil scholars, they come to our place and they sit at the feet of our Pandits, Sanskrit Pandit or Tamil Pandits. They learn the language in order to understand the deeper concepts. That will happen. But unfortunately, in all the modern branches of knowledge, our languages lagged behind for historical reasons. Not because of the poverty of the languages. They are very rich.
Sir, there is one more question from Dr. Sridharamji. He's saying, sir, disability study का भविष्य आपको कैसा लगता है और इसमें क्या नया जुड़ना चाहिए? आप disability study के experts रहे हैं, तो इस संदर्भ में क्या-क्या चुनौतियां हैं? So basically, he's asking about overall disability studies and what is the future and what should be done to overcome all the challenges in this field.
Okay. Let me answer briefly because it needs a separate session. Till 1995, we did not have an act. PWD Act came into existence from 1st January 1996, was passed by the Parliament. And it included only 7 disabilities. And there are so many provisions about the reservations in the higher education institutions and special schools or inclusive schools, etc., etc. These things could not be met because there were no preparations. And particularly in the case of sign language, people did not understand that sign language was the only language which deaf children can understand. But they were putting machines into their ears, and then in the normal classrooms, they were tortured to repeat what the teacher was teaching through another language, which is called oralism. Suppose you know English, you know Hindi, and you know some other Indian language, you can somehow relate and understand. Suppose I start just now in some other language which you do not know, how you will understand, how you will respond. So sign language is just like that. I'll give you. இதுவரைக்கும் நான் சொன்னதெல்லாம் உங்களுக்கு நல்லா புரிஞ்சதா? உங்களுக்கு இதுல ஐயங்கள் இருந்தா எனக்கு சொல்லுங்க, நம்ம விவாதிக்கலாம். ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை. Did you understand?
No, sir.
So what I said was, until now, I spoke about a few things. Have you grasped them? If there are any issues, any doubts, then we can discuss further. This is what I said, but I said it in Tamil, Indian language, classical language. If this is a problem, when you face, because you don't know the language. Similarly, the deaf students, they can understand, express only through sign language. And that sign language has to be taught. So like that, such special issues. Then you have locomotor issues where you need mobility, ramps, toilets, lifts. I call them RTL, ramp, toilet, lift for mobility. And then for the blind students, you should have braille, audio books, like that for every category. Now, I think 21 categories have been included in the RPD Act 2016. And enormous efforts are being now made to include them. I can just give one incident that took place, and I think the time is running out for my session.
No, sir. We have half an hour left with us.
Oh, still time is there.
Yes, sir.
See, in 2005, some of my friends and I, we met President Kalam, Dr. Abdul Kalam. We wanted to present a charter of demands for including disability studies as part of the national curriculum. And he gave us, I think, 15 minutes. His office gave us 15 minutes. When we met him, he started interacting with us with so much involvement and animated discussion. For almost 50 minutes, he kept some of the heads of states waiting in his reception. 3-4 heads of states, they were waiting. And the protocol officer, he came and saw the president talking to us. And the outcome of that discussion was, he called his joint secretary, a senior IAS officer. He dictated that you write this, a note. And the note was to include disability studies as part of the national curriculum. And this note was submitted to the government of India. The government of India, at that time, I think Mr. Arjun Singh was the HRD minister, 2005. And they had a meeting in the cabinet that it was passed because a note comes from the president of India. And then it went to UGC, and the UGC sent immediate, circulars asking every university to create chairs for disability studies. And of course, as a follow-up is, now you have equal opportunity cells in many universities and colleges. Delhi University has one, because I visited that equal opportunity office 2-3 times. And they also have so many other facilities. They created facilities for the first time. Now, in IGNOU, you read out in my CV how we got UKRI Research Award was to create a BA Sign Language program. My colleague from University of Central Lancashire and we jointly submitted a proposal. We got the award. As a result of that, we created BA Sign Language program. That was the first program in higher education for the deaf students. Till then, it was not there. And it became an instant international success. People from Denmark, people from USA, so many places, they approached us to talk about that program. We admitted 80 students from 9 countries. We didn't have proper teachers here. There were PhD holders who talked about the need for sign language, education of the deaf, but they themselves did not know sign language. You can write about it in English, but you yourself cannot teach through sign language. And therefore, we got the teachers from 5 countries: Belgium, UK, Germany, France, and America. And they came, and practically without any salary, they taught. We just gave them accommodation and our Indian food. They were so dedicated, they taught. And we got students from 9 countries: China, Nepal, 4 African countries, Afghanistan, of course, India. And all of them were so happy. They performed so well. And even before they graduated, there were requests from various institutions offering them jobs to come and teach sign language. Anyway, due to institutional politics, that program was suddenly closed. It is not there anymore. And those students are also repeatedly requesting the university to do something about it. That's a different story. I don't want to elaborate on that. But we have now that ISL, Indian Sign Language, ISL RTC, Research and Training Center. That was created by my efforts. Because of sign language, the government of India approached us. Both the ministers who were in social welfare, they visited and they saw with their own eyes how brilliant the deaf students were. So they were interpreters. They had series of questions. The students answered so brilliantly, they were convinced. And then the government of India decided to give initially 45 crores to set up the center in IGNOU. We did set up. It was inaugurated by 2 union ministers. And it was picking up. Then, as you know, as it happens in politics, even in universities and colleges, when there is a change of leadership, when the vice chancellor changes or the principal changes, the whole world changes, at least within that setup. And ultimately it was closed. And that was not the right decision. And from that time onwards, our students don't have a BA sign language. We started it 2009. It ran for 3 years. 2011 end, it was closed. 12, it was closed. So far, they could not revive it. And of course, the center is now under the Ministry of Social Welfare. And they also could not revive that program because it's such a complex one. And a lot of technology and everything. Other than that, for other disability issues, you have Unicode now. You can translate any course materials using Unicode into various formats. For example, low vision and total blindness. You can have Braille version and you can have audio books. Like that, there are so many devices which are used and they can access the materials, because when we talk about access to education, it is not just a physical access. It is also access to academic access to materials, access to reference books, access to help, access to proper examination arrangement, everything. So things are happening, but there has to be proper monitoring.
Yes, sir. I think we need more visionaries like Sir Kalam and people like you with more determination and hard work. And then we can include all these people also into mainstream. Sir, one more question is from Shanti Bhushanji and saying, sir, how to minimize the interference of the mother tongue while learning a second language?
There are 2 approaches. One is the direct method. Because when I learned Russian, I heard Russian teachers, original Russian native speakers, and also Indian teachers who knew Russian. But the method was they never used English. They never used English. And they created a situation. From the situation, you can understand. With pictures, with so many other things, you associate. Oh, this is what it means. This is what it means. When you see the book, when you see a house, when you see a male member, female member, a child, old man, you immediately listen to them. You pick up first the sound and then you repeat it and learn the language gradually. Afterwards, you think through that language. It will be much easier. The other method is through mother tongue. There is nothing wrong in it. But then, which method works with which student better and what level? Suppose you are teaching a language from the beginning. I don't think mother tongue is needed. Suppose you have students coming to the colleges after 12 years of schooling, and we go there assuming that they are now undergraduate students. So you start giving a lecture in economics or political science, whatever. I don't know your subject, but immediately, pardon, economics?
English.
English, okay. So in English, we have one advantage. We can explain in so many different ways till the student gets the point. We can use various expressions and then ask them, do you understand now? That kind of thing. But when you teach subjects through English medium, there comes the problem of not understanding many things And when the students ask the teacher to explain through mother tongue, you can mix both. There is nothing wrong in it. But then you can also ask them to cultivate the habit of reading more and more materials in that particular subject so that they become familiar with the content, familiar with the language. So these are not isolated. When you read a good novel or a short story, say you read non-fiction written by George Orwell, and also his novels, or D.H. Lawrence, do we read only the story? Do we read only the plot? You have so much that you can learn as language, expression, the tone, the mood, the correct characterization, and excellent criticism of modern civilization. Whenever I read D.H. Lawrence, I see that he was a visionary 100 years ago. How we are just, in the name of development, digging out everything from the bowels of Mother Earth and then become slaves to machine. And then gradually we lose our ability to feel, our feelings and emotions. They are all wiped out gradually by the machine or the industrial civilization. So when you are gripped by all these things, you read through that language, and if you translate that into some other language, you lose much of it. At the same time, when you read the content written in a particular way, powerful way, you also acquire the language and you can use the language powerfully. The only thing is, as Bernard said, the textbooks are not liked by students because they are written by people who do not know how to write. Both the methods are okay, but the teachers should be creative and imaginative.
Yes, sir. Rightly said that, our concern should be that they should learn the thing. If with the mother tongue, then that's great, no problem.
Yeah.
Sir, there is one more question or query. It's by Dr. Shubha Divedi. She's saying, thank you, sir, for the great talk. Can you suggest ways to support students' multilingual development?
To support, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, can you suggest ways to support students' multilingual development?
I think it depends on their individual interest. Why do you want to know different languages? That question will have to be answered by the student. I think Reddy can think about it. Suppose he speaks Telugu at home and then learns through English, picks up Hindi by interacting with their friends and teachers. The question arises, how to learn Telugu more intensely? Living in Delhi or living in USA, it may not be that easy. So you have the urge to know your own mother tongue. Motivation is very important. Secondly, we must see for the beginners, which are the good readers in that language. And then lot of materials are available in every language these days. You go for some search, also consult some good teachers in that particular language, whether it is Hindi or Telugu or Tamil, and be selective initially. Once you become well-versed with the mechanics of the language, the grammar, and then you acquire enough vocabulary, you will realize for what purpose you want to develop multilingual abilities. If there is no purpose, if the purpose is not clear, then I can't suggest or prescribe anything. Suppose I want to read a very famous poet, Sri Sri, a Telugu poet, 20th century revolutionary poet. Then translations are available in Tamil. Maybe they are available in English. But I want to read Sri Sri in original Telugu, or Nannaya's Mahabharata, or Kamban's Ramayana in Tamil, if you have that kind of passion to read something in original, or for that matter, Tolstoy in Russian, Dostoevsky in Russian, you will definitely develop that language because you are motivated and there is a purpose. That's how you can develop. Otherwise, if you want to become an interpreter, then you have a few hundred words, a few grammatical structures. You know, our Michael West, you being the teacher of English, you would know only 2,000 words, limited vocabulary, but you could converse very well with anyone. And Michael West is out of print now. So motivation and then proper guidance and the learning materials.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is this observation by Dr. Sanjay. He is saying, बहुत ही ज्ञानवर्धक व्याख्यान रहा है सर. भाषा मनुष्य को कभी भूखे पेट सोने नहीं देती. भाषा पर अधिकार होना चाहिए. भाषा कोई भी हो. ये आपके द्वारा मैंने सीखा है. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. So he is thanking you that he learned that we should have command on the language, whatever the language is, and language is every time going to do us a favor only. So if thanking you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me also tell you, in Tamil classical literature.
Sir, sorry, one more question with more permission. It's by Bhuvneshwar Sharma. He's saying, why people feel more deprived when they hesitate themselves to communicate in English? How can we make them comfortable? Give some suggestions regarding upliftment of English.
Okay, I think it is the upliftment of the learners who need to acquire proper command of English. That will happen only when we widen their experience, their reading, their listening, all the 4 skills, writing, the 4 R's, 4 skills of language learning: listening, speaking, reading, writing. For that, sufficient drilling should be there initially. Then they will become effective. And language, you become very effective in using language when you use that language unconsciously. Every time you should not be thinking whether I am using the right noun or verb, singular or plural. That way, language cannot be employed. When I am talking to you, I am talking to you without being conscious of the mechanics of language. It comes through practice, more practice.
But I think, sir, with the second language, that happens in the very beginning, that we become aware of whether I'm speaking, picking up the right word or not.
No, but that inhibition can be overcome easily. And probably they need good teachers like you, English teachers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for giving your precious time. And now, officially, I'll thank you from on the behalf of our organizing committee, on the behalf of our IQAC, ISD College, and all the participants. I convey my heartfelt thanks to you for being here and for enlightening us on this need of the hour thing, that how the inclusivity that is required, and we should also do that to make the overall higher education inclusive. So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much, sir.
I thoroughly enjoyed talking to all of you, and all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
And yes, participants, now